thinking about fostering? At Lambeth, we are committed to giving young people the best possible start in life. Having a safe, secure and stable home to go to is something the vast majority of children experience. But sadly, for some children, family life will break down. And this can result in a child being brought into the care of the local council for a short period of time. Foster carers are valuable people who work with social workers and other professionals to support children in care. They help give a child a warm and loving home and a stable family routine during a difficult period in their life. Lambeth foster carers receive an induction, ongoing training and support from our staff, along with a generous weekly tax-free allowance for each child they foster. This film explores the experiences of Lambeth foster carers. We hope it will give you more insight into the role of a carer and help you decide if fostering is right for you.
I think if you're considering fostering, I would say please contact Lambeth, because we're a borough that values our foster carers. Unfortunately, we have a lot of young people who need good foster carers to provide them with the stability and security they need until decisions are made about their future.
I became a foster carer because I love children, period. And I started to do fostering because when I gave up work, I looked after families, and that was an encouragement to go into looking after children. And I just enjoy every minute of it.
When we first met, we started discussing the possibilities of fostering, and we finally decided to do something about it after we were civil partnered, so that it had a bit more meaning that we were wanting to have a family of some description. We know with fostering that the children are never ours, but there's a lot of children out there who don't have stable environments, and being a foster carer, we can provide that stable environment for a child.
I became a foster carer because I'd had a very happy childhood in a large family, and my parents had also done some respite care. I then went on to my working career, and I worked very hard, and apart from seeing nephews and nieces, which I loved, I didn't have time for much more. I then hit my 40s and thought I'd like to give something back, and that really was when I saw an advertisement in the paper and I thought, yes, fostering is something I'd like to do.
The main thing when you're considering being a foster carer is please call us. That's the starting point. Give us a ring or contact us through our internet. Once we have your details, we would allocate a social worker to contact you and take some brief details, and that gets the ball rolling in terms of the assessment process. The assessment process itself usually takes between 6 to 8 months.
One of the other things that helped motivate us was the fact that we're very conscious a lot of looked after children haven't had positive male role models. And obviously one of the things that we can bring to any foster child's life is some very positive male role models.
Whilst at Lambeth we try to be very flexible with the people who approach us, there are, by regulation and fostering standards, specific criteria that would mean that you may not be able to foster. For example, if you didn't have the right accommodation, if you didn't have room for a child, so a specific room for the foster child, or for example, if you had a criminal conviction that led to concerns about your ability to safely care for a child. But what I would say is please approach us and talk to us, and then we can be very open and honest, and that's one of the things we try to do, be flexible but be very open and honest with people about whether they can foster for us.
We chose Lambeth over an independent fostering agency because local authorities like to keep their children as close to their birth family as possible.
Once you approach Lambeth with an interest with regards to fostering, we would take some brief information about you and send out an application form. When we get that application form and you meet our criteria for fostering, you would be allocated a specific social worker to work with you in terms of carrying out the full assessment, which is quite a lengthy and intensive process whereby we look into what skills you have to offer to fostering, and also identify any areas of further training that you need. Once we're satisfied that we can recommend you for approval as a foster carer, we would write a report and take you to a fostering panel, Lambeth fostering panel, and the panel's made up of members of the childcare professional and also independent members of the panel, who would then make a recommendation as to whether you should be approved or not.
To become a foster carer, you have to go through a whole approval process. However, that's the price that you pay to be able to do the wonderful job of making a difference to children's lives.
The challenge is firstly, when the children come to you, you have to be mindful that they're coming from varied backgrounds, and you have to be as gentle and as kind and as encouraging as possible, because to begin with, they have a lot of fear. They're coming into a home, coming into an environment which they're not used to. They are fearful that, are these people going to be good to me? Are they going to be kind? Are they going to be the same as where I'm coming from? All sorts of things going through their heads.
The challenges for fostering for me are basically not knowing who's going to come through the door very often, not knowing when they're going to come through the door, and also not knowing what behaviours they're going to exhibit.
The challenges of being a foster carer is you're dealing with children who in general have had a very bad start to their life, are quite damaged or have other problems to overcome, and so you've got to deal with that. Normal, well-adjusted, intelligent young people do not, as a rule, become looked after children. So you have to recognise that it will be a very challenging child, and also there is all the bureaucracy and formality and regulations that you've got to deal with as well.
In terms of the difficult area of having contact with birth parents, who understandably find it very difficult when their children are being looked after by other people, Lambeth foster carers would have the support of their allocated supervising social worker, who would help them work through the feelings around that. But also at the same time you would receive training, specific training to look at working with birth parents. Lambeth as a borough would never put a foster carer in a position of being exposed to any risks or dangers in terms of working with birth parents.
As a foster carer, I like to ensure that the birth family is involved with the child as much as possible. As a carer, I find it best to be open and honest with the parents, and basically from the start say, I'm here for your child. I'm not trying to take your child away from you. Your child is your child. But I'm here to make sure that your child thrives, is in a stable environment, and receives all their basic needs and more.
You maintain the relationship with the birth family by really facilitating all the different contacts, whether it's taking them to see their birth family, whether it's making sure that phone calls take place, but also doing some life story work with them so that they have an honest, balanced, but also positive view of their birth family.
Firstly, you have to have a loving, open heart and mind. You have to be open to challenges. You have to be able to listen. One of the greatest things that you have to be is a good listener, and not be pushy with the children, because you have to wait on them. You know, you can stir them into action very gradually, but you have to wait until they're ready to talk.
When children come into foster care, they've quite often come from a traumatic background. Coming into a foster carer's home, they're actually coming into a strange environment. It's important that a foster carer tries to keep that child's life as normal as possible. Occasionally, new routines need to be established. We need to make sure that the children are up on time, they're nicely dressed for school. We need to make sure that they have healthy nutritional meals. It also involves, from the foster carer's perspective, sometimes we need to change our routines to fit around the children.
One instance was a child I had him at age 10 and he couldn't read or write. On a daily basis, I used to sit him down, get the books that was appropriate to his age and so on, and teaching him to read. So by the time he got to school, he could do basic reading and he started to build his confidence.
You've got to provide lots of reassurance. So find out the foods they like, find out other things. You can then start giving them a routine that reflects that, but also that's adapted so they know that their likes and dislikes are being recognised. You get them to decide how the furniture is arranged in their room, the posters that go up on the wall, so that they really feel this is a home.
Lambeth supports its foster carers. First and foremost, once you're approved, you would begin a programme of induction. So we wouldn't throw you into the deep end, you would actually go through a process of induction to introduce you to Lambeth, the services, the fostering task. You would also be allocated a specific social worker, named your supervising social worker, who would meet you on a regular basis. So for example, at least once a month, to look at how things are going for the children you're caring for, how you're experiencing it, and then identify any support needs you have.
The support I receive from Lambeth is excellent. If I need help, I know that I can get it. But if I'm fine and there are no issues, then I know that they just let me get on with my daily life.
In addition to that, you would also have other support systems around. You're going to be working as part of a team that supports the child and their placement, so you're not working in isolation. If your allocated social worker wasn't available, there would be a duty worker available at all times during the day. Out of hours at weekends in the evenings, Lambeth has an out-of-hours service where you could contact somebody to talk through issues that were happening.
Lambeth foster carers support each other through monthly support group meetings where we meet for a cup of coffee, a chat, share best practice. We have invited speakers. And also we have Lambeth Foster Care Association, which is run by foster carers for foster carers. And we have lots of activities, outings, again, support, advocacy, and we have a good time.
The reason to become a foster carer is the difference that you make to a young person's life. If you have, as we had with one young man, someone who describes himself as a waste of space, no self-esteem, who then 6 months later is able to perform something he wrote himself in front of 200 people, and you see all the other ways that you make a difference to their lives, that's why you foster.
The best thing about being a foster parent is seeing the child thrive, to see them play, to have fun, to see them laugh, and also sometimes to see them have a better relationship with their parents than they've been able to have before. And that to me gives me a huge thrill.
What I get out of fostering is the reward of seeing them being settled, and that fear, that big word fear, is gone, and they're confident and happy and have a different approach to life. Because often they're very bitter, they're very withdrawn, and totally kind of within themselves. They don't really want to interact with people. But the joy of seeing them out of that situation, to see them happy, smiling, and be part of your family as well.
I would encourage you to choose Lambeth because we're a welcoming and friendly borough. Our reputation amongst our foster carers is very good. We're generous in terms of our allowances, and we will provide you with support all the way.
It doesn't matter whether you're gay or straight, single or a couple, own your own home or rent, black or white, it doesn't matter. If you've got the space, the skills and the love to give, you can be a foster carer.
I think the impact that foster carers have on children's life is immense. By providing stability and security and meeting their needs and being there to help them through very difficult times is invaluable. And young people often in Lambeth reflect back to us the meaning that that has had on their lives.
To see a child that has come into placement so angry, so sad, so bitter, to see them actually leave calm and happy. And a quote that was actually told to me one day was that the children are looking to find weakness but hoping to find strength. And as a foster carer, that's very meaningful to me.
Make a difference to the lives of children in Lambeth and start your fostering journey with us. Call 0207 926 8710 or log on to www.lambeth.gov.uk/fostering to get involved.